Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, we had a lot of rugby games going on this weekend, but of course none of them matter because none of them featured Canada except for one. And that's the game that we're going to be mainly focusing about, and we'll get to the others later. But was this a mixed emotions for you? I see you wearing your Saracens jersey, StoneX Stadium.
Yeah.
Lots of Saracens players taking part in the match for both sides. So were you in a constant flux of, disappointment because some Saracens players were losing, but others were winning? I mean, how did you cope?
Yeah, it's always tough. You want to see you always want to see the Saracens players do well. So obviously, those that are on England definitely came out on top. And unfortunately, those that were on Canada, didn't fare as well. But I think, in these situations, always cheering for Canada. Always. It's cool to see Canada playing at the Saracens ground for me. That's a fun moment. But it's I think my general rule of thumb is when I'm watching any team play at StoneX Stadium is I'm cheering for the red and black one. And that's how it always goes. It's a very simple equation, really. Just cheer for the red and black team that has Sophie de Goody on it, and it's basically settled. The argument settles itself, really.
Yeah, I suppose, fair enough. So let's get into the game itself. This was the second of the series between England and Canada. And, after the blowout victory last week, it was considered more of the same, especially as it started. A couple of tries from Packer and Kildunn, who, were very impressive in Sandy Park in Exeter the week before. And then just when you thought, okay, 2 tries, no conversion, so 10-0 up, it can't get any worse than this. And then suddenly it did, because Gabriel Senf had a high tackle on an England player, and as so was deemed a red card. So for basically 3/4 of the match, Canada were down to 14 already against a team that, is the world number one. So, not great. But then we, continued. There was a bit of back and forth in terms of momentum and possession, and there were, missed thrown lineouts, there were knock-ons, so on and so forth. And then in the 26th minute came what's known as to, Arrows fans as the Mike Shepherd special. But this time it was the Svoboda special because she connected with a kick to cause the charge down, was able to regather it and score Canada's first try of the match. So, as Mike Shepherd's retired, maybe we should now be changing the name of such a move. I think that's only fair, isn't it? And
Pass the torch on.
yeah, so the Sarasov, I'm butchering this name, Sarasvoboda special.
That's some alliteration there.
That is, yeah. But we'll all know what it means. It's that charge down try, which we're all thrilled to see. And unfortunately, Sophie de Goody on her, proving that she's human quest is missed that conversion. And then Muir got a try for England again to end out the first half. And then obviously being a player down for the second half, really came to Bruges, with England scoring 2 more tries from Reid and Breach. And now, fortunately, what kept the score low was that only Muir and Reid's tries were converted. So the score at this point was 29-5. And then right towards the end, and within the final 10 minutes, Taylor Perry, she came on for the final 5 or 10 minutes of the first game against England. She'd been playing the entirety of the second, was able to get that ball down over the whitewash for Canada's second try of the game. And Sophie de Goody may have proved that she was human in the first half, but proved she was superhuman in the second half by nailing what is essentially a touchline conversion. And that ended the scoring of the game. Final score, England 29, Canada 12. So still a comprehensive victory for the Red Roses. But at the same time, it's showing that Canada was still in that fight throughout that game. You know, it was much closer than the previous week, and obviously having more time together, having more playing time. You know, it could have, if Senf hadn't been sent off, maybe it would have been a much closer game. But again, these are the world number ones, and you know, um, getting game time in, especially, is fantastic. And the commentators were saying that, you know, prior to the World Cup in 2022, Canada was struggling to get 3 or 4 games a year because they didn't have a competition like the Six Nations, and there's no women's rugby championship to my knowledge anyway. So now we have the Pacific Four series, and we have these warm-up games. We have the WXV coming up this month, and now Canada's set to play 9 games this year. So you know, that experience and the growth of women's rugby, especially as we head towards the 2025 World Cup with the expansion to 16 teams, it's definitely going to be very interesting to see. And I'm glad that the women are getting the games that they deserve. And yeah, you know, and like I said, we have the WXV coming up where Canada will be playing Wales, then Wales, England, and then France. So if you remember the World Cup from last year, it's basically sequential moment. It was Wales in the warm up, England in the semi-finals, and France in the bronze final. So, you know, it's a bit of deja vu, I would say. But let's hope the score lines aren't the same.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll circle back to that Sophie de Goody's comments at the World Cup, right? More games, more
Mm-hmm.
resources. Um, looks like the squad's getting the more games part is coming to
Yeah.
fruition. Hopefully, more resources are to follow. But I mean, that's something we've talked to at length on the podcast, so we'll just kind of
Mm.
maybe buzz through that point here. But
Well, we got to reiterate it again, just so that Rugby Canada know
so
that
Rugby
you know
Canada,
we're not giving up. We're still pushing that. You know, we can get more players, get
give
them
them
into
money,
more
some
professional
money.
environments, more money, more opportunities to represent Canada on the global stage, and more chance to get medals in World Cups. Ideally gold, but you know, baby
All right.
steps.
All right. Well, fair enough. Yeah, I think this game, I think there's kind of like three I think there's three things that happen in this game that feel like they kind of contributed both like momentum wise and also just tactically what happened and maybe contributed to the loss in this one. The first one being just as far as something that happened like throughout the game, as I believe you did touch on it, the line out was just not good enough in this game. There was a lot of, whether it was England getting a hand up there to kind of, make the ball a little messy or straight up steal a line out, or, you know, just there was a few throws that weren't straight. There was even a throw that wasn't straight that Canada got away with because England had an infraction that was later in the game. I think that was one of Bogue's throws. But
Yeah,
right. And it was like England had an infraction at the lineout before the throw. So they kind of got away with that one. But if you look at where that ball ended up, it's definitely not straight. So that was kind of an issue because I think not only was there a few of those lineouts that put Canada in good attacking position, a couple of them England was able to also, I think, Reed's try in the 50th minute started with a botched lineout. If you kind of rewind it, that's how their possession started. It's not the immediate thing that led to that try. Um, but it's so I feel like that was kind of an issue. Canada also missed on in the first half, early in the first half, a chance 5 meters out from England's line as well, which the line out didn't go favorably, and they ended up turning that over. Even further as far as like set piece goes, England looked like they had the better scrum too, and kind of used that to their advantage at certain points. So that's as we're looking towards WXV, that's going to be something that's got to get cleaned up, especially especially like maybe you can get away with it against Wales, but you're not going to get away with it against England and France. And so it's that's something that's definitely going to have to be cleaned up a little bit. Beyond that, I think there's two things that also happened in this game that to me just really killed momentum a lot. One was obviously Gabriel Sneff's red card.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Which was already, as you mentioned, it was 10-0 at that point already. So realistically, poor start, right? You're down 10-0, 13 minutes into the game, give up a red card at the 17th minute. So that's not the greatest opening 20 minutes, right? And, obviously being, well, for one, it's an obvious red card.
Yeah.
Is there, I like, it's very, I feel like maybe it's just because I'm watching too much World Cup right now. I feel like it's very rare where we get like or at least right now, it seems like it's kind of rare where we're getting like a red card that's like everybody kind of agrees on. But this one
Well,
was
it's
just
strange
like,
not to have the bunker system in there. So instead of it just
I
being a yellow, and we'll get back to it in 8 minutes
kind of
time.
hate the bunker. Is this, can we go, should we do this later or can we do the aside now? I actually kind of hate the bunker.
I'm going to give you 90 seconds to do your aside.
Just make a call. Just let people know what the call is. Just make a call. You don't have to be like, it's a yellow, but maybe we'll make it red in 10 minutes. We'll let you know. Just make a call. That way everybody just knows what's going on. Just make a call. That's my like beef on the bunker. I don't like reviewing it like later. Just pick one.
I think the whole idea of the bunker is, did this reach the yellow card threshold? Yes. Okay, we'll get them off the pitch, and then the TMOs can decide behind the scenes, and the game keeps going. So the flow of the game's better. So I think that's
but the flow
reason.
of the game's better, but it also makes no sense. Just make a call. You know what? Just make the call. No other sport does this. No other sport's like, you don't see hockey being like, here's a 2-minute penalty. Yeah, we looked at it actually, like, and then a minute 45 later, they're like, you know what? We looked at it. It's actually a 4-minute penalty. Enjoy the rest of your power play.
Yeah, but the alternative is what does happen in hockey is, we're going to a video review. We're going to stop play for.
They don't review penalties in hockey,
or fouls or whatever. And so I've seen the refs run on, or skate on, I should say, or basically you can have
there's some long
coaches challenges and stuff like that. So that's what they're trying to avoid. They're saying like, okay, the reviewing goes on behind the scenes, and we'll decide from there.
If it's a penalty, though, like the teams on the field have to know what's going on. Like you game plan differently if you know that player's coming back versus if you got to be like, okay, we got to figure out what we're going to do playing 14 people down or like with only 14 players for the next X amount of minutes.
I can get what you mean by that, but
it's a difference
for them. It's like, okay, you are without a player for at least 8 minutes. So work on that. And then the ref will call in. And then it's like, okay, now you either have to change your strategy for in 2 minutes later or change your strategy for the entire game.
You know where we really screwed up, though? I think with this all kind of goes back to the whole review system and everything in every sport. As a sport viewing public, the moment we screwed up is the moment that whatever point in history where we decided that refs can't be wrong. That's the moment we screwed up. Like, just let guys make calls. Just let people make calls. If they're really good, they should be right most of the time or whatever. But it's like this like desire in like every sport to be like perfection is kind of wild and leads to weird things like this.
I don't know. I think it's more of a case of if you let me put it like this way. If it was Saracens versus Quins and it's the Premiership final and Quins
wouldn't get to the final, but whatever.
Anyway, but so Quins are there in the final and they score a try. And because of there's no video review of stuff, the ref says that, a try was awarded because that's what the line judge saw, that's what the ref saw. But then you find out after the fact that the player actually knocked it on. And therefore, Saracens should have, that try shouldn't have been allowed, and Saracens should have won the game.
But that's not
how annoyed would you be?
No, because that's not what the bunker's for, though. Right? Like the bunkers, like they're reviewing yellow versus red cards as it happens. Like, it's not like they would be like, okay, like the Quins score a try, and then 8 minutes later, they're like, actually, that's not a try. And then take the try off the board.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of your thing of they can't be wrong.
That would be let them be wrong. Let them be mad at refs. Leaf fans, we've been mad at Kerry Fraser for 30 years. Just let it happen. Like it's fine. Just let it happen.
Okay, right. Anyway, your 90 seconds has been and gone. Okay, so back to
you started asking questions. You added to the 90 seconds.
Okay, Canada women.
Yeah. So either way, Gabriel Snep's red card is like, it's obvious. She's way too high in the tackle. It's like, you don't need the bunker for that. It's red, like just clear red.
Yeah.
Botterman kind of joked about it after in their post-match interview after. It's actually really funny where the commentators ask her like what happened on that red card, and she was just like, she put her shoulder into my face. And yeah, that's about exactly what happened. At least so, but it's just a momentum killer. It's 10-0 and you're down a player. And and then obviously weirdly Sabota gets her try. So I feel like that try actually kind of steadied things for a bit for Canada. And like the rest of the half, even though they were, maybe didn't look the most like threatening from an attacking point of view, they were playing some solid defense, and it was like a pretty steady approach to the game from them. The other big momentum killer, though, I think, is in the 39th minute, Muir gets another try. And we've kind of talked about on the podcast like before, like how much a try in like the 39th, 40th minute right before halftime, or even a try like right after halftime, can be such a big momentum boost or a momentum killer. And I think Canada, and I think like if Canada was feeling down at the 20-minute mark, being down by 2 tries, being down a player due to a red card, Sabota, I feel like kind of brought them back up with a really, as you said, like, the Sarah Sabota special, as we'll rename it now. But it's like a really great, like, individual play, good charge down. Atchison kind of took way too long to get that kickoff, but we're happy for it. And that kind of brought them back up. But then that Muir try, I think, kind of brought it back down. And then the opening 10 minutes in the next half also ended with a try for Reed as well. So it's like it kind of, and then the score kind of feels a little bit more out of reach, and you're also down a player. So it's like it becomes an uphill battle quickly. So I think looking at the game, I think those are kind of like the 3 big takeaways from here, the 2 big moments, and then the lineout really not being able to connect. You just kind of felt like the like what happened
Kevin Rouet had a few comments after the games that it's still a loss for sure. I think defensively there was more aggression, and I think we need to find a balance. Sometimes we get so many penalties that it costs us more easy tries from England. So that's something we have to fix to understand when to have the aggression. After the red card, it became more of a challenge to try and win the game, but I loved our mindset. At halftime, we're talking about how we still want to win this game, and that is the mindset we should have. Offensively, I think we need to be better for sure in these kinds of games. There was space outside that we didn't finish. We attacked too much around the breakdown, and there were easy carries sometimes that we needed to be better at. But I recognize our effort until the end. So yeah, I think having that mindset of, you're up against the world number ones, but even at halftime, 17-5, that's, that's 12 points difference. That's, two converted tries, you're back in the game. Obviously that didn't happen, but keeping it realistic, obviously, that isn't how it panned out, unfortunately, but it's still a thing. But I agree with him, as there was space that didn't finish. Attacking the breakdown, I think obviously sucked in more defenders for when it came out, and there are a few moments when you just put your head in your hands and go like, why do you do that? And I also think that, but I think you could say the same thing for England as well. I think there were multiple opportunities that England threw away, so that they could have definitely had a scoreline similar to the first game, and you could maybe argue like, they're trying players in different positions, or they're trying something new, and if it didn't work, and like we said last week, these are the games in which you can do that, because from both perspectives, already qualified for the next World Cup. So the WXV is an opportunity to play more games, but again, that's ranked. These aren't, and give new players a chance to get more international experience, get a few players back from injury, and see how they perform. And yeah, these are the games in which you can risk. You
Yeah,
can try something new. You can
I
mix it up, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, then back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams obviously came out with a couple lineup changes and things, but I think the one thing I'm kind of like looking at this, and obviously there's a handful of players that were playing in this game too that we'll talk. I guess we can slightly transition into like the traveling roster now for WXV, but
Yeah, because so the day after this game against England, the traveling roster was announced. There's only 30 players going to the inaugural WXV tournament. So as a result, certain players have been stricken from that. So Olivia de Merchant and Taylor Perry have been removed, as well as Caroline Crossley and Magali Harvey. So Crossley didn't feature in the series against England.
yeah.
Harvey only came on as replacement in the first test. As we said, Perry played the entire second game, but again, final 10 minutes in the first. And yeah, and the Merchant's absence is questionable, but in their place, Brittany Cassill and Julia Schell back into the touring squad. So the non-traveling reserves include Demerchant, Perry, Crosley, Harvey, as well as Abby Duguid, Emma Taylor, Lizzie Gibson, Corinne Frechette, and Mahalia Robinson. And you may be wondering, well, there's a few players that didn't go on the tour. Are they going? No, there's still 6 players listed unavailable. 4 of them have been in World Cups. So the list includes Maya Montiel, Cassandra Tufnell, Pafanet Boisa, Karen Pakwi, Brianna Miller, and Sarah Kaljuvi. Those are the 6 that are not available for this tournament. So that leaves a total of 30 players going down to New Zealand to play these games. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
seems
So
pretty good, pretty good squad with the forwards. The backs is a bit interesting. I mean, I feel sorry for Taylor Perry, who, you know,
yeah,
played the entire second game, scored to try to finish it, and now she's on the
coming back from an
non.
injury too.
Yeah, so I mean, but again,
I
I'm
think
not Kevin Rouet. I don't know the full
see
details. So
that's the thing though. It's like I think like some of the changes and stuff, obviously certain players being dropped off the squad, and Shell and Castle coming back, obviously that's obviously big. Um but and like you said, you had some of these players playing really well. I wonder how much of, and to your earlier point there, Stu, of like, you know, these games are kind of like an opportunity to test some things or try some combos too.
mm-hmm.
I was thinking about the World Cup qualifiers, and like teams like Tonga played Canada, Romania played USA, teams not in the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the bigger guns that are going to the tournament, like New Zealand played South Africa, right? That's not in the same pool, right? Like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the World Cup warm up games are played, like the matchups are like teams that aren't necessarily going to have to play each other. Like maybe you end up in a semifinal or a final, but like nobody's playing like warm up games like within their pool,
Yeah.
right? And I think the interesting thing with this is that obviously it's a 2-game series between England and Canada, 2 of the top 4 nations in the world that have a very meaningful game in less than a month, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much the lineup decisions on both sides and the tactics used in this game, I wonder how much of that is also a little bit of like mind games from the coaching staff a bit too, just being like, we're not going to show you everything Like we want our players to come in and get the reps in that they need,
Hmm.
warm up. You obviously don't want to go to WXV cold, but like
Yeah.
get the reps in. Maybe see how like Taylor Perry's coming along after after her injury, and coming back to coming back into the side, play her like, and even that Perry kind of played a little out of position too at
Yeah.
at center during
Center.
this game,
Yeah.
even though she did score a nice try. Kind of mix things up, right? Like, play Olivia Apps a lot in the second half, right? Allow like a lot of early changes. Like you said, use like Harvey kind of came in a little bit, gives everybody like make some subs, give everybody a break. Nobody gets hurt. You don't want anybody getting hurt in these games as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
the WXV, but also maybe just kind of show, don't necessarily show your entire hand. Like you
Yeah.
still
I am.
have like
I
that
get that.
ace or two up the sleeve, and maybe that's part of the lineup calls and stuff is also just like maybe it didn't even matter how, like everyone we're going to look at Taylor Perry. Hey, Taylor Perry played pretty well. She scored a try, keep her on. But if that's maybe not part of the plan, maybe there's something else there. And it's like you probably don't want to show all your cards to a team that you have to play a super meaningful game against in less than a month.
Yeah. No, I fully get that. And yeah, if you're wondering where can I watch the WXV, well, it's going to be a few early hours games if you remember the World Cup in 2022. But we can say that the first game will be held on October the 20th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And all Canada's games from the WXV will be available on TSN. The specific channels, or if it's on the TSN Plus service, is to be determined at a later date. And if you want to follow along with the WXV as a whole, keep in mind that it is divided into essentially three competitions: WXV1, WXV2, and WXV3. And 2 and 3 will be taking place between the 13th to the 28th of October, whilst WXV1, which features Canada, will be the 20th of October to the 4th of November. So they'll be starting later, but they'll be finishing later as well. So yeah, if you want to see whether the United States is going to get relegated to WXV3, who knows? But that'll be happening the week before the final round
Yeah,
of
I'm
Canada's
looking
game.
at the schedule now. The 1 2 a.m. game might be rough. That might
Well, not if
that's a rough one.
not if you're on the Pacific Coast. So
That's still
maybe
11 p.m. kickoff. That's still kind of that's still rough. See, I'm thinking of like, is it better to stay up, or do you go to bed at like 7 and wake up later? Like, what's the
mm,
strategy on a 2 a.m. kickoff?
well, keep in mind that that game's going to be against England, and we've already had two games of Canada England at
But not this game.
yeah, but not this game. But at the same time, you feel like, okay, I've seen Canada, England twice already this year, and I've seen how the results go. You know what? I may just get the highlights in the morning or something along those lines. Maybe you also though risk the chance of waking up to find like Canada smash England
Yeah.
50-0 in Dunedin, and
No, we gotta figure it out. We gotta figure it out.
I know we'll be figuring that out.
Figure
But
out your excuses for how you can sleep in and show up to work late on Friday, October 27th, guys.
anyway, we move on because news has come out of a couple of more competitions. We're going to be talking about senior men's first. As reported by Brian Ray with America's Rugby News, there will be a mini tournament in Spain that will feature Canada, Spain, obviously, the USA, and Brazil. And there will be two rounds. The first round, which will be held on November 11th, will feature the USA versus Brazil and Spain versus Canada. And then a week later, on November 18th, the winner of the winner of both games will face each other, and the losers of both games will face each other. So Canada may end up playing the USA in Spain. And if that happens, that will be the second time that's happened this year, because if you remember, the Pacific Force series had Canada versus the USA in Spain. Now, you may be wondering, well, hang on, how come Canada gets to play Spain and either USA or Brazil. Why not one round with Spain, one round with Brazil, and one round with the USA? And apparently, according to Brian Ray, who quote tweeted Miguel Danez, is that per the Spanish Union and media manager, the decision to play the 2-test tournament instead of a full 3-test round robin series came from World Rugby, which is disappointing to say the least.
It says
I mean,
that whole tweet is just a polite way of saying World Rugby is dumb and doesn't like tier 2 nations that well.
yeah, I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Oh.
But still, the opportunity to play Spain again, maybe Spain will be looking to get their first win over Canada on home soil, which is probably likely. It also feels very unfair.
Vote of confidence there, Stu.
I mean, did you see the game between Spain and Canada last year?
I did.
We did. We talked about it. Spain without the S.
I try to forget.
I also feel this is so the highest ranked team of these four is the USA, who are currently ranked 18th. Spain's at 20th, Canada at 23rd, and Brazil's 26th. And I'm like, hang on a second. How come number 18 gets to play 26? That seems a bit,
it's
I think like Brazil's getting the short straw here.
That's the way it's usually done, though. Highest seed plays lowest seed.
Yeah, but yeah. Although to me, if this was a full round robin tournament, this wouldn't be an issue. But thanks again, World Rugby.
Yeah, just one other week, just one more week.
Yeah, and they will be playing in Villajosa, which for anyone who has been to Spain or the British population in Spain, in Benidorm is just right around the corner. But the location of the stadium they'll be playing in is slightly northeast of Murcia and south of Valencia. So right on the Mediterranean. It should be a really good time in November. But we will have to just see how that is all going to come about. And now we've been talking about 15s with the women. We've been talking about 15s with the men. Let's talk about sevens, because as a new season of Rugby Sevens is upon us, the Pan America Games have returned. They will be taking place in Santiago in Chile this year. And today they announced the men's and women's sevens teams for that tournament. And, there's a lot of big names in these teams. Big one is Charity Williams is returning to the women's team. Alicia Corrigan is also named as well. Asia Hogan Rochester. Some of these players who were in the Rugby America's North qualifier tournament for Paris 2024. So they'll be building as they get prepared to go to Paris. On the men's team, we have some familiar names: Brock Webster, Ethan Hager, Lockie Kratz, Matt Persillier. They're all back and they'll be taking part. And now, unfortunately, we know that the Canadian men were unable to qualify, but they have their final qualification tournament that'll be held later this year. And obviously getting more prep for that, as well as for the Sevens tournament that will be taking place this year. This is, great progress. And for those unaware, since the inclusion of sevens in the Pan America Games, the Canadian women have won every time. They won in 2015 in Toronto and 2019 in Lima. And the men's have also been doing pretty well. They got gold in 2011 in Guadalajara and gold in Toronto in 2015 and a silver in 2019. So the Canadian men have made the final of every Pan Am tournament, and the women have won every final in the Pan Am tournament. And I'm sure they'll both be looking to continue to return to winning ways for that. Broadcast details are still to be confirmed, but they also mention the coaches and support staff that will be joining the teams as they head down to Chile. So we will be talking about the results when they happen. Those games will be taking place on November 3rd and 4th, which are days 14 and 15 of the Pan America Games tournament. So wishing all those players all the best and looking forward to more medals being brought back to Canada. Now we've gone from 15s, we've gone to sevens. We've talked about it on the national stage. Let's get back to MLR a bit closer to home because the Toronto Arrows have continued their string of re-signings for the 2024 season, and there are some big names that are returning, very familiar to the Arrows faithful. And those names are Tyler Rowland, Cole Brown, and Kieran Breen. So we got a forward and two backs added to the squad. Tyler Rowland had the following to say: I am really excited to be continuing with the Arrows and look forward to embracing the challenges and contributing to the success of the club. I have felt at home since joining in 2020, a large part of which had to do with Bill Webb's support and influence throughout the years. I look forward to honoring Bill's legacy and continue to aid the growth of the game in Canada while also putting out performances the organization and the fans can be proud of. Cole Brown said, I'm incredibly happy to be returning for my third season with the team. I love playing for the Arrows, and being part of this group is a dream come true for me. Although we didn't achieve the results we wanted last year, I believe that challenging experiences create strong people, and I'm excited to see our team's resolve heading into the 2024 season. There's a lot of work to be done before the season begins, but I can't wait to be back in the team environment. And Kieran Breen said, there's definitely a buzz going around while chatting to some of the returning guys about our goals and just the overall feeling going into next season. Everyone is super excited to get back to Toronto and to show what Arrows rugby truly is when we play next year. The passing of Bill Webb, while still deeply saddening, is something that will unite us, make us stronger, and give us something extra special to fight for when we throw on that jersey. We know he'll be there with us along the entire journey.
Yeah. So I think over the past couple of weeks, almost every player that has re-signed, Roland Brown and Breen, obviously no exception to this as well, has mentioned Bill Webb and his passing, which obviously, obviously that had a huge impact. But it seems like we are probably gonna get a very motivated Arrows squad in 2024. It seems like obviously they weren't happy with the way the season went last year. But I think everybody seems to kind of talk, like all the quotes coming out, everybody's saying the right things, right? Talking about the improvements that they can be making, and it seems like there's to honor Bill's legacy is going to be a big piece of added motivation for the squad going into next year. So it's starting to kind of feel like maybe we should be maybe perhaps expecting some bigger things from the Arrows in 2024. I figured it might be a good time to kind of update the squad. So the 2024 Arrows to date are in the forward pack. It's kind of slim still. Jack McRogers, Tyler Rowland are the two forwards that have re-signed. The backs, we have Cole Brown and Kieran Breen, as Stu just mentioned here, right? As well as Sam Malcolm, Mitch Richardson. And we have additionally, the Arrows have completed trades for Robbie Povey, Rowita Biddle, Jordan Brown, and Te Rangaria Waitokia. So Povey coming over from the Houston Sabercats. That was a draft pick. Biddle and Brown from the team formerly known as Rugby ATL, right? That they were traded for a foreign player slot. So the Arrows are down to one foreign player slot. And then Waitokia was traded for some salary caps considerations, which obviously went to whatever the franchise in LA is going to be called. And obviously the Arrows a big contributor to the Rugby ATLA fire sale that has been happening. I have no idea who's going to play for that team. As we joked last week, Stu, I think we're 2 trades away from us having to suit up in LA, which isn't the worst thing in the world because LA seems like a really nice place. But that's kind of where the Arrows sit right now. Personally, I think it's obviously way too early to kind of judge this. Simply not enough names. The only thing is I would like to see that foreign player slot number go back up to 10. If Tim Matthews is able to make a trade to make that happen, I think I I would like to see that. And it seems like there's enough evidence in the league so far to be the teams that have lower numbers of foreign player slots tend to miss the playoffs most of the time. So
Yeah, it is a
I
shame.
would like to see that
Yeah.
bump back up.
And keeping in line with Canadian movements, an announcement that came, I believe, last week that we forgot to mention, so apologies. But the Dallas Jackals have re signed Liam Murray for his services for the 2024 season. And, I'm still waiting for that all Canadian front row that's going to take the Jackals to the top of the West.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when that happens, that's it. Game over. It's done.
Yeah.
Jackals
Yeah.
win the Dog Bowl. They win the I-45 feud. They bring back the Cali Cup and just take it from San Diego or LA. And they're just like, this is ours now. What can you do? We have a Canadian front row. Your point's invalid.
Yeah, I mean, I thought like all three, I mean, all three of the Canadian front rowers, Steves, Kotze, and Murray all played very well last year. Um, I think Murray last season took a big step forward in his development, and as did the other two guys too. So I hope they're back, or if they're not back, I hope they're somewhere else in the MLR. But it's Dallas, I think, is a very interesting team. I think, despite what their record has said over the past 2 years, I think, some of those young players that are in Dallas gave them, I think, might have given those fan base something to, be excited about or hopeful for in the future. And great to see that Murray is going to be coming back, and wishing them all the best in Dallas, and hopefully hopefully their the wins start to come for that franchise, because it's been a bit of a long journey for them.
Mm-hmm. And some Ontario rugby news. The McCormick Cup final for 2023 took place this past weekend between the Brantford Harlequins and Barmy Beach Rugby Club, with the Harlequins winning 26-20. And if you were there for the game, it must have been a very close affair. But you may have recognized some familiar names from Arrow's games back in 2019. Because Brantford featured Tom Van Horn, Josh Van Horn, Colby Francis, and Will Kelly, whilst Barmy Beach featured the is it right to say like semi-retired, because you never know what'll happen, Jamie McKenzie taking part in that game as well. And, a close encounter and another win for the Harlequins in the McCormick Cup.
Yeah, so congrats to the Brantford Harlequins, and obviously a pretty big former Arrows contingent on that squad. Will Kelly is also listed as one of the coaches, so I guess he's pulling some double duty. But it's cool seeing some of the pictures on social media with a handful of former Arrows with the McCormick Cup, and I hope everybody enjoyed those celebrations. Obviously, we've done a handful of pitch side interviews with Will Kelly after the games, and Colby Francis, one of our first player guests. So always got a spot in the in the Rouge Rugby family for those guys.
All right, now we are moving our attention back to France for the Rugby World Cup. It is the final weekend of the pool stages. But Derek, the weekend that has been, any games that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think there was a lot actually that I think were really interesting. Obviously, Georgia Portugal was an interesting one. Wait, was that last week? New Zealand Italy was that was just a highlight reel. That was a fun game to watch.
Unless you're Italian.
Yeah, unless you're Italian, then that was the most miserable 80 minutes of your life. But I think watching that game is the casual reminder where it's like there is like the different stages of like blowouts, where it's like the first couple tries you're like, oh, it's exciting, and then there's like the Harlem Globetrotter-esque era where you're just like, this team's just like goofing around and is trying to do ridiculous things and make sure they pull out the try of the year somewhere among during this game. And then you get to like, and then it gets really kind of boring because the scoreline is way too huge and it's not fun for anybody. And then it gets to like that other point where you're like, I'm actually going to keep watching this just to see if they get 100 points. And the All Blacks didn't. They let me down on that one. They did not quite get the 100 points. But yeah, it just is what it is at this point. Us, yeah. I don't know what jumped out at you.
So I think the closest game was Uruguay Namibia.
Yeah, that was a
On
good
Wednesday.
game
That
too.
that
Yeah,
was that was a good game to watch. Namibia looking as though they would be taking their first ever win in Rugby World Cup history since they've been in the competition. And at halftime it definitely looked like that, but then Uruguay came back in the second half. Obviously, Namibia didn't help themselves with picking up a couple of cards, including a red card for the Siderius
yeah,
Sethi. Yeah, that was disappointing. And also 2 minutes after having a yellow card for Uanivi as well. Because I remember seeing Uanivi, I'm like, that looks yellow.
yeah.
I guess we'll have to see from the bunker if that's red. And then I saw Sethi's tackle, like, yeah, that's red. That is definitely red. And maybe it harks back to your point of like just make a decision because that was a very clear decision. But I guess with the bunker system, it's just like let's get the game going, let's get
Which I
moving
hate,
along.
as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I heard you. But coming back from halftime,
Hmm.
it was a case of you know both teams knew what they needed to do, and it started off well for Namibia getting that penalty, but then it was just two tries in the space of 5 minutes for Uruguay, brought them into the lead, and then they never really looked back after that.
Oh.
And picking up their second victory in World Cup history. Not as
Not as dramatic as the one
yeah,
against,
not yeah, dramatic. That was the word I was looking for. Not as
yeah.
dramatic as against Fiji in 2019, but
Speaking
a win's a win. So
yeah, speaking of Fiji, I said Portugal Georgia was a game I was excited. That was 2 rounds ago. Georgia Fiji was the actual game that I was trying to think of in my head there.
yeah.
That was a really good one. That was super tight, and then Fiji obviously kind of pulled away at the end. But there was just some hope for just absolute chaos in that pool if Georgia pulled that one out.
Yeah.
Which we kind of got denied, but it's still a pretty chaotic pool. Like there's a lot of math happening for everybody's scenarios that Australia can still get in if the score line goes right, and in a couple other games and stuff. And then obviously, Fiji's super excited because they got a real shot at their first quarterfinal since 2007 too, right? So
Yeah, and
it's gonna be a
well,
big week.
yeah, it was incredible that it was 9-0 to Georgia
Yeah,
at halftime. Then Semi Andrade gets yellow carded
yellow, yeah,
as soon as the clock starts, but then it is that 10 minutes later, Georgia didn't capitalize. Georgia didn't capitalize, and then uh, they get their try for Fiji, and then it's just a case of penalty, and then another try, and then it's only that penalty right at the end to secure that losing bonus point. So Georgia can at least say they leave with that. But
yeah. And
yeah, it's
also too, like with Fiji right now, obviously big storyline for them too is Joshua Tuasova playing at the World Cup. You know, he played the game in against Georgia shortly after hearing of the death of his son, and then is gonna have to play Portugal this weekend, obviously carrying a pretty heavy heart and dealing with that emotionally as well, right? So that's gonna be a like it's a bit of a story to kind of follow with Fiji. And I mean, he was still like signing autographs and stuff for fans after the game last week too. It's pretty hard to imagine what he's going through as maybe kind of living out your dream, but also dealing with probably the most tragic thing that anybody ever has to deal with in their life. So hopefully it's his story and stuff right now. It's a big reason to kind of be pulling for Fiji, and
Yeah.
I hope they do well, and I hope Tuisova continues to play well at the tournament too, because it's pretty unimaginable what he's going through at this point in time.
Yeah, thoughts are with him and his family at this difficult time. All right, Derek, I'm going to have to now ask you for your predictions for the final weekend of
All
the
right,
pool stage of the World Cup. And we start off with New Zealand versus Uruguay.
All Blacks.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything. Oh,
after that
sorry,
game,
Gaston, Manuel. Sorry, guys, but no, All Blacks. All Blacks.
Gaston and Diana both to score tries against the All Blacks. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Hopefully that happens. There we go.
okay. Now we have a Six Nations clash because it's France versus Italy, and
France.
yeah, it's
I mean, I
it's
know
not
it's the All
difficult.
Blacks, but Italy showed like absolutely nothing positive shown from Italy in
No.
that game against the All Blacks.
And now we move into Pool C where we have Wales versus Georgia. Derek, dare I ask who you're going with?
I'm gonna go with Georgia because it would be fun.
Color
There
me
hasn't. This is like the
surprised.
last week for it. Like we need an upset. We need some. The results of this World Cup have been very like standard. Like I mean, like if you kind of look at our records, you're 26-5-1. I'm 25-6-1. Like they're like
Yeah.
it's it's hasn't been the most difficult tournament to call. And I know a few of those are us just also being like, screw it, let's just pick differently than the other person. Like
Yeah.
it's because yeah, so I mean it hasn't exactly been a difficult World Cup to call right now. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping for some upsets here.
All right then. Fine. One. Okay. Next up we have England versus Samoa. I will be going with England.
Yeah,
Derek and
England.
England.
Yeah.
To be I really want England to finish top because that means they face Fiji in the
Ooh,
quarters.
that'd be fun. That'd be a
Well,
fun game, man. That would be a very fun game.
well, remember who Fiji beat in the warm-ups to
Yeah.
this World
Yeah,
Cup,
I know
so
exactly.
keep
That's
that
another
in
that
mind.
would be a fun game too.
Okay,
Yeah.
then we have another Six Nations clash because we have Ireland versus Scotland, and I've seen people saying on social media, if Scotland do this and Ireland do this, then South Africa goes home. But if Scotland do this and Ireland do that, then it's Scotland goes home. And if another thing happens, it's
Oh,
Ireland that goes home. So it's very interesting to see how this goes. However, I think Ireland want to be top of the pool.
that
They want to go through.
seems
So
reasonable.
I'm
Yeah.
going with Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm Ireland, I definitely want to play the All Blacks in the first in the quarterfinal because of all the historic success that Ireland has had in the quarterfinals of this tournament. Definitely want to, yeah, so definitely want to go with that. Definitely not worried about those mind games from the All Blacks coaching staff calling that Ireland South Africa game incredibly boring. So definitely not worried about that at all. But it's yeah, Ireland's gonna win this game. Like and
All
then
right.
the quarterfinal. I'm already predicting that one.
All right. Now, this should be an exciting game because it is Japan versus Argentina. Both teams are currently on 9 points in their pool.
Yes.
So whoever wins this game will go through to the quarterfinals. So it could be
Perfect.
Argentina, it could be Japan. It's it could, and the point difference is Argentina is on plus 46, Japan is on plus 14. So currently, if they were to tie, then Argentina would go through. They are currently standing in second. So for Japan, they need to win this, but Argentina, they can't concede anything. This is it essentially. So who do you have winning this game, Derek?
I think I'm gonna go with Japan. I think they've just I think they have been playing a little bit better. And also it'd be great to have if if Fiji gets through too, it'd be awesome to see two like quote unquote tier two teams in the quarterfinal. So that's what I'm cheering for right now. The rise of tier two nations.
Yeah, I think it's At this point, I'd say Argentina's tier 1. I mean, they've been in.
That's
the
what I mean.
Rugby
Yeah,
Championship.
Argentina's definitely tier 1. Japan's tier 2, though.
So yeah, Fiji. Actually, I don't know. I think Japan is.
Are they
tier
in the
1.
Rugby Championship or Six Nations?
Yeah, that's an equal counter argument.
Yeah. No.
Well, I'll put it this way: Japan is currently 12th in the world, whilst Argentina is 9th. The difference being just under 4 points. So it's 75.51 for Japan, 79.31 for Argentina. So, and in between those two nations is Australia and Italy. So make of that what you will.
Great teams.
All right, you're going with Japan. Then for the sake of not being completely similar, I will go with Argentina.
Fair enough.
All right. And now, I was going to say this is going to be a close game. I'm thinking of the next one. Tonga versus Romania. I'm going with Tonga. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, man.
If this World Cup had taken place a year before, maybe this would have been close, but Romania have just been the disappointment of this tournament.
They've been terrible, yeah. They've been terrible, and their players are, calling out their union on Romanian newspapers. So fun times for Romania right now.
And we close the pool stage with a Pool C clash. It is Fiji versus Portugal. Now, even though Fiji is currently ranked 8th and Portugal is 16th, with over 10 points separating these two teams, I have a feeling this may be a lot closer than others may think. But that said, I am still going to go with Fiji.
Yeah, I think it's Fiji. I mean, I think they're just straight up Fiji's the better team in this game, obviously. But also, as we just mentioned with Tuisova, his family, and, what the Fijian national team is kind of going through right now, they're going to be, motivated to not only, win this game for just Fiji rugby, but also for the Tuisova family and everybody that they know that's connected to that tragedy. Right. So, they're going to be playing with an extra ounce of like motivation in this game too, and they have their sights set on that first quarter final since 2007. So, I think it's going to be Fiji just because they're better, and two, it seems like they have a little bit more to play for in this game too, just from an emotional point of view, anyways.
Those are our picks for the Rugby World Cup pool stages. And if you are looking where that you can find those games, they are available on TSN and TSN Plus. So make sure you subscribe to those channels in order to view them. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as our written pieces on our website, rougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify, S4P, and Apple Podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel at the Rouge Rugby with episodes of the podcast, as well as extra interviews with players and coaches. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We also are available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, all at the Rouge Rugby. But Derek, where can people find you specifically on social media?
At Briss at the Jet on your favorite social media platform.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Derek, thank you for joining me, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.